because a lot of things with nature that when you initially breach the outer defenses, like for example, if you were to get sick, that means it has breached your defenses of your immune system.
Right.
And usually by then it's too late. So it was the same concept that nature was around us, and that we looked to nature to find an answer.
Besides the brute force and trying to fight your way past the barrier, the wall, gate.
Because we could not keep in supply our armies.
So
you try feeding, for example, how long do you think it took to get to the front?
Well, what did you have? Ships and, beasts to burden to move everything, You didn't have freeways and Humvees and helicopters and all the modern ways to move massive amount of people. Literally was foot, right? And strength, manual labor.
So eventually, when you do arrive at the Trojan front, I would say, you have high anxiety because you are trying. Pretty much each day, wears and tears on you because it requires a level of mental willpower to keep going.
And keep the fears of the unknown and what lies ahead from taking control, right?
And then eventually, for example, 10 years, how do you feed someone for 10 years?
You have to have a continual supply of food or access to be able to get it.
And that's the reason why the Trojan War lasted over 11 years. Because the supply and demand of, food and weapons and armor, the logistics of the entire war, kept us from being able to win it early on. Because we were so far from our suppliers.
And the Trojans had their resources accessible, right? Because it was all stockpiled within the city.
Yes.
But they run out too, because they can't be resupplied.
And it's why they weren't trying to be overly aggressive.
So they were just going to ride you guys out.
Yes.
So who had the idea of the Trojan horse? The ginormous wooden horse?
History credits me, but that's not true.
Was it a collective vision? Was it a divine inspiration?
It was actually Agamemnon's armor boy.
Ah.
Thace by the name.
Face?
Thace.
Did he have a dream, or was it just some crazy idea?
Just a small comment. He was fuming because he had to do all this extra stuff and just wanted to go home, and just made a small comment, and then it didn't go unnoticed, and he thought he was going to be punished, but we said, "You're a genius," and that's what happened.
So he was focused on a different outcome than trying to what everyone else was doing. He wanted to go home.
Yes.
Plus, you said he was younger, so he had a younger mental mindset. He wasn't hardened by battle, and
he spent 8 years of his life at that front, and he was 15 at the time. So all he knew was the beaches and precipice of the Trojan front. He couldn't remember his mother's face, and just like a lot of people were forgetting what their loved ones looked like and what home smelled, felt like.
you probably had to actively keep that memory alive in some form. but it takes effort, and if you're going, you know, competing with other things to get your attention to do, yeah, I can see that's a big deal. So who was the one that ran with the idea to actually build it and figure out how big it needed to be? I mean, were there engineers that were with you that could do the math? And
because, well, there was a lot of need for, tropoli and all other such things, so yeah, it was not that difficult to build.
well, how did you do it in secret with them not seeing you? Was there enough?
Well, they saw what we wanted them to see.
So it was almost like you were building a symbol of maybe their victory and your defeat. I mean, so you were really building up the story. That's because I guess if you think about it, if you built it, let's say there was out of view, I'm not sure, the train, and then all of a sudden rolled up with it, they would be suspicious, I would imagine. This gigantic horse, like, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you built it from the ground up. Were they thinking you were building a ship, thinking you were building a catapult? What was it? Did they try to, shoot flaming arrows at it to burn it down, or what?
Well, religiously, they worshipped, Poseidon, and
right.
he was the lord of horses. So
Even though he was the lord of the sea? I guess
he's the lord of the sea and horses.
Ah, okay. I'll have to go look. I didn't know. I knew the first part. But anyway, so they thought you
Well,
were...
hence why there's also several tales of them being hippocamps, which are pretty much,
Right.
Upper body of horse, but lower body of a fish.
Right.
A little interesting mythological insight.
So they thought you were building them as... I mean, I guess you wouldn't know what they were thinking, but they watched you guys build it. Building the form and carving the head and putting this piece together. It was like an effigy to Poseidon and a symbol to them for what? That you guys were giving up? What was it?
In their minds, they thought of it as a lasting symbol that they've won.
And so you were distracting them with that and not knowing the true purpose. I mean, would there have been a big, negative consequence if you had given up and went back to Greece and not kept on? Or was it more of a pride, I don't know. At what point do you concede?
Going back to the logistics of the war, all the Greek city-states that participated in the war, they're all too far apart to effectively rally to each other's defense in that sort of time, because it would take months, maybe even over a year to, gather forces.
Well, and by the time you communicate, they get there, and yeah, it would be, wow.